Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story Podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, it's Ivy Slater. Welcome to today's episode, where I have an amazing woman, Jen Miller. Jen is multifaceted work experience from brand, agency, corporate, retail, international sports events, and nonprofits. In her corporate culture, HR operations, digital marketing, experience marketing, Jen has turned business challenges into solutions and aligns corporate goals with community needs to drive corporate social responsibility. And also in corporate social responsibility, for those of you who are very interested, the abbreviation when you look for it is also called CSR. So Jen has had a 20 plus year career. She has worked in organizations from Nike to World Cup USA to various nonprofits to community food bank. And one thing that I have found fascinating as I have gotten to know Jen is her dedication to doing what she's passionate about and her continued touch base with relationships. And it's something that's really near and dear to my heart. And when we were just chatting over like what's new in your life these days, she's like, oh, well, I'm not here, but then I spoke to this one and I spoke to that one. I was like, oh my gosh, we have to capture this. So Jen, thanks for joining me here today.
Oh, thank you so much. This is great to be here. And I really appreciate the opportunity to share a story.
So you've been in corporate America in a variety of ways for over 20 years. You know, we talked about, you know, our backgrounds as women leaders back in the day of being working mothers over time. You know, today, you know, we were going to really share some of your experience of what's happened in the evolution in 2020 and how that change for you has become even better situation than ever before.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. It's very timely. And, you know, 2020 has been a bit of there are a lot of words for it. Probably some we can't say.
There are.
Yeah, it's been a challenge and it's been tough. But I see it a bit as a metaphor or sort of kind of bringing me back to where things started for my life in terms of being a nonprofit. And that's where I started out many years ago at the Women's Sports Foundation. But one of the things I've been finding as I'm sort of doing my own journeying in all of this is I always had a philosophy. I always had a sense that, and I kind of saw this at a young age, that, you know, we all start out as a little seed, like a little sapling of a tree. And, you know, we have this vision or aspiration to grow up to a big tree. And in order to get there, we look at, you know, the big tree up there and say, you know, how am I going to get there? And, you know, through our journey, we you know, grow and we make a decision and we go from one branch to another. So at the end of the day, we may have thought we were going up the tree, you know, a certain way and growing in a certain way. And all of a sudden we end up on the, you know, another way because we've made decisions along the way and they bring us to a different place in life. So I've been seeing that decisions along the way in my life have just led me to a different path that I thought I would be in. I always tell the story that when I was a kid, when I was 8th grade, I wanted to be a sportscaster, and there was a particular sportscaster back in the day who used to do the Olympics, and I just wanted his job, and I didn't get it, and after a while, I didn't want it, but that's what I wanted when I was a kid. But different decisions along my path got me to different places. So I see that as a bit of this year. Is, you know, we're making decisions based on what's in front of us. And each of those decisions are taking us in a different place.
And so it's interesting because sometimes people say, oh, so it's been really tough, or it's been a tough experience, a bad year. Yet, not all the places these decisions take us to are bad.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
so you had a bit of a journey this year. One of the things I've admired about you, you were at a company for a very long time and you started a, corporate responsibility mission within this organization.
Yes. So I worked in the auto industry, and I was hired many years ago, about 8 years ago, to work on a national initiative to create a better consumer experience for a particular luxury brand. And I was hired at the local level so at a dealership, in order to develop this national initiative. And so I was in the auto industry for many years. And soon that, the reason why I was hired, we accomplished a lot in our consumer experience program, but I moved into different directions, and I wasn't really a big fan of the auto industry. There are a lot of challenges and a lot of things that I'm not happy about in the auto industry, and I really feel that it has an opportunity to change. And what I did was I found ways to make it really work for me. So while I wasn't happy with the industry, there were things about the job that I enjoyed. And that was the opportunity to do something on a really hyper local, but really significant way. So what happened was a lot of nonprofits would come to us. I'm in a New York metro area in New Jersey, and it's a pretty big area, 1.5 million market area. And a lot of the nonprofits in the area would come to us and ask us to donate a van to them. And we would say, wow, that's a pretty heavy lift when you're talking about several nonprofits coming to us. And I realized that there was a pattern, that the nonprofits that came to us really wanted to use the van on an as needed basis. They didn't need it all the time. And therefore, it didn't make sense for them to own a van per se.
So why purchase something that, right? It's especially in a nonprofit, you're always looking at overhead and where you're spending your money and how you're resourcing things. So you kind of want to use it for an experience. So it's, instead of going to rent and spend money, you're going to a dealership and say, could we borrow this?
Exactly. So on an as needed, why do they need to spend on the maintenance and the gas and all the ancillary items as well as just the car vehicle itself? So I suggested to the president that we use our own van, and on an as needed basis, anybody could come out and ask us to use the van. And what we found was the need was where nonprofits are great at collecting things like toys and diapers and food, and they're great at distributing things, but the connection point was very difficult. How do you get
from A to B?
A to B. How do you get the collected items to the distribution point? And that was a major challenge for nonprofits. So for the very reason where it would cost them money. So our solution was to create this program, Maple Crest Moves Charities, to provide that free transportation with a driver to pick up and deliver. So real quickly, we found that we helped one organization that came to us. It was a food pantry for a college, Rutgers Food Pantry. And they needed us to pick up once a month. And I said, I think we can go do better. What do you really need? They needed us to pick up once a week. So I said, let's do it. So as a result of us picking up food from the community food bank of New Jersey and delivering it to Rutgers Newark, they were able to increase their distribution to their students. So, and save money. They saved $6,000 one year. They were able to go from serving 200 to 2,000 students. They went from serving 2,000 pounds of food to 20,000 pounds of food because of our help.
Significant.
So that was the great. That was so impactful to me. So it was a way for me to take a not so great situation with an industry I didn't love and turn it around to something that I really did love. And as a result, I was able to build great relationships. And when I was furloughed from the job due to COVID, I put out to my network that I put a video together, and I said, hey, here's the van. My boss from the dealership allowed me to keep the van to use it for nonprofit purposes, which was awesome. And I said to my network, hey, I was furloughed. Here's a van. I'm happy to continue doing this project and help anybody out. The Community Food Bank of New Jersey, which is the largest food bank in the state, came. A couple of my buddies came to me and they said, hey, Jen, there's a job here. Why don't you come on over here? So as a result, I was able to take that relationship. I was able to use to leverage what I had created in such a positive way to create something new in a downturn, tough economy.
Right. So I think, there were so many lessons when we were talking about this before we went, when we were originally chatting, and then we said, okay, we need to capture this in the podcast. And one of the things it was, okay, well, to start a corporate responsibility program in an organization is a lot, it costs a lot of money, right? How many people do we need, right? You were able to say, well, there's a need, right? And in this need, we have an empty van here. Just like connect the dots, let's put 2 and 2 together. Yeah. And in that difference, what we're hearing is from 2,000 to 20,000, which is truly significant. Yeah. And it's by a small action, not by hiring a full staff to develop a corporate responsibility program, not by, figuring out how many millions of dollars, how are we going to collect it? How are we going to give it? It's none of that. It's about seeing something in your community and your organization taking an action around that.
That's a great point, because I say this all the time that we as in corporate or businesses, small businesses, we can be so much more impactful to our communities simply by utilizing our own internal assets and using those assets to help the nonprofits. One of the other things that we did was to utilize our internal digital marketing board. So, for example, we had 12 large screen TVs around the dealership, and we controlled the content. And clearly it was mostly about product, great, videos about vehicles and services and all that. But what I was able to do was to pepper in and create a digital advertising board or promotional board for our nonprofits, which was a $3,000 media value based on how many people come into the dealership, how often we have it up. So a message, we would create a message for the nonprofits, and that message was up on these digital boards 100 times a day. So that was another thing that we could provide to the community. So what happens as a result? Without us going out there and marketing to these nonprofits, guess what? They came back to us and they bought cars. They serviced their cars. So 30% of the nonprofits that we worked with came back and thanked us by providing us with new business. So those are ways that businesses can simply use their assets and build such great connections with the community, provide needed resources without spending a ton of money.
And, it talks about, and you're a marketing woman, right? You're branding and marketing, and this is your thing. And it was like, wow, a way that marketing gives to others and costs nothing.
Yes. Yep.
Right?
And the ROI was big. Yep. The ROI was big. We could measure. We could do a lot of measuring. And so it all worked really, really in a great way. And the fact that the owner was behind it from the beginning was really key, because again, when I was furloughed and we both, it was a sad, furloughing like everything else. When I said, hey, I'd like to continue doing this on behalf of the dealership, he was like, yep, right on, go for it.
So the leadership believed in the mission.
Yep. He was totally behind it, and I thank him, and he was terrific. President of the company. Yep.
And it's so, and I don't know sometimes if it's generational. I don't know if it's by person. I don't have this answer. But one of the things that you and I are so aligned about is, so I just, I let everybody know in my network what was going on. Where a lot of people are like, oh, I got furloughed. I have to take a pause. I have to reevaluate. I don't know. I could be embarrassed, right? Although it really very often has no effect on us, on our performance. It's a business decision. And you didn't take on any of that baggage or emotion. You just said, well, let me talk to my people. So where does that come from?
Yeah, that's a great question. I look at things pretty positively, and I feel that's, I look at opportunities, and I think I've always looked at what's the opportunity, what's the silver lining, as you said it from the beginning. And you know what, to some degree, it was a blessing in disguise, because I had wanted to get out of the industry. I liked the people, but I wasn't digging the industry. So it gave me a way to pursue my passion. So I was thankful in some degree, in some way. But to your point, I did have to go out there and work it. So, I had to go out there and put myself out there and be vulnerable. And from what I've heard from other people, I did do it in a way. I wasn't saying, hey, folks, I was furloughed, I need a job. I said, hey, folks, I'm furloughed, but the furlough has given me an opportunity to continue working with nonprofits because I have the benefit of using a van that was provided by this company. So it was a great connection, and it turned out to be something that, as I said, made sense. And this goes back to that story of, the tree. I didn't plan it. I didn't think this was going to be the result. I never knew what the result was. I didn't go out there saying, I'm going to get a job at the community food bank. It happened. So that was pretty great.
So what tips, thoughts for other leaders who are finding themselves, and I have several questions here, leaders who are finding themselves that things are shifting right now in business, right? I have a firm belief, and I've spoken about it, that we're in a business evolution.
Yeah.
And we have a choice to be the leaders of this evolution, or to be a follower and continue to play catch up for the next, 3, 5, and 10 years.
Yeah.
So what tips do you have for other leaders of today, of up and coming leaders, of how to navigate during these unexpected times?
I'll start with younger leaders, and this definitely applies to some of the older leaders as well. But younger leaders, I say this all the time, and especially now, I think it's really important. I tell my children, I tell anybody I mentor, be a part of a nonprofit. And if you can, join a committee on that nonprofit. And the reason why, and I often say, be a part of 2 nonprofits. One could be professional nonprofit, and the other one for your passion. So one is heading you toward a professional development type of area, and the other, as I said, kind of diving into your passion. And the reason why I say this to young people is it's a great way to network. It's a great way to learn new skills, especially if you are taking that risk and to be a part of a committee. You have an opportunity to learn from other people. You have an opportunity to share your expertise, and you can't get fired. So it's always a win-win that you have this great opportunity. And for women in particular, I often say that because we have a habit of feeling like if we don't know everything about a subject, we know nothing. And I remember I was on the women's committee for the Women's National Soccer Coaches Association. So a large soccer coaches association, largest in the country. And we were trying to recruit women to be on the committee. And all these guys were raising their hand. They were the male coaches of women's soccer. Guys are raising their hand, and the women were not. And the reason why the women weren't was they would be like, oh, you know what? I only have 10 years of experience as a player and 4 years as a coach, so I'm not good enough. And the guys were like, yeah, I'll be on the committee. And so what's your experience? Oh, I played high school soccer, and I was the assistant coach to my 12-year-old. So, the women were just reluctant to put themselves out there. So when I connected that, back to, be on a committee, be a part of a nonprofit, something that you really like, it's a way to develop skills so that you're feeling confident. And, women getting to that point of confidence, it's a tough road for many women. And I see it with younger women. I think women of an older generation was hoping that the younger ones would go, no, be confident. We taught you better. And
we've got this.
Yeah. And they're still, and girls are still, and young women are still feeling like they have to know everything. Women you don't have to know everything. You have to be open to exploring and being open to saying, I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to I'm here. I'm willing to learn, and I'm willing to be a part of it, whether I know everything or not. One of the other things I've learned is to say, I don't know it. I don't know. I'm not really sure how this works. And I have to say, going to the community food bank, I have no idea how to do food banking. I really don't. So there are times, but I know what I know, and and I'm really effective.
You know marketing, and you know branding, and you know a lot about nonprofits, and you know, and what you're doing is you're taking your experience and then learning what they need and applying it.
Yes. Yeah. And in fact, I just had a conversation today. So I've been at the food bank since May, and I was hired as an official temp during a pandemic. So they needed somebody with my expertise to do a particular role. My role has now expanded. I've been doing a ton of other things. And I had a meeting today with the VP of programming and the head of HR. They want me there. They want me to be there. We just haven't figured out the role yet. So it was very funny that we were all talking about the fact that this is an opportunity to create a new role. And one that's not out there, it doesn't exist, but they are seeing that what I've brought to the party in the past 7 months is valuable. So a lot of what I'm doing is a lot of relationship building. And I've been working with many different counties and many different external partners, and that has been valuable. So I told them today that one of my daughters said to me, Mom, have you ever just gone into a job and like interviewed and got that job, or have you made every role you've had? And I told the HR director today, I said, I think that probably 95% of the jobs I've ever had, I've made. I've just created. So it's kind of, the advice is be open, be willing to accept and say that you don't know everything, but you're willing to learn and you'll figure it out.
You're willing to learn, you're willing to, and own what you do now and offer that up. And I think that's brilliant what you said, is own what you do now, offer it up as a match to fill the needs of an organization. And whether that be a nonprofit, whether that be a corporation, a for-profit company, listen, I'll always say, see what the pain points are in sales, right? Coming in sales. What are those pain points? Listen for them. And if you're the solution to the pain point, if you can help give them that aspirin or Band-Aid, and that's your solution, don't try to be the whole.
Right. Exactly. It's how can I help? How can I be here? Here's what I have to offer. How does it fit? And that's exactly what we talked about today is we'll figure it out and we'll find the right fit. I want to work there. They want me to be there. We'll figure it out. We don't have to have every answer today.
And Jen, thank you for being the role model and the leader you are, that comes in with such a big heart and a big, I'm ready to jump in attitude. And I'll always say, my 7 traits of great leadership, trait number 7 is showing up with a what can I do attitude every day. And showing up that way, you create your opportunities.
I appreciate what you're saying, and I'm 1000% on board with that. And that's the biggest advice to say is create your own opportunity and be open to it, and be open to, again, this time is, there's a lot going on, but there's a lot of opportunity out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How can our listeners learn more about you and follow you?
I'm on LinkedIn and at Jen Miller, and I am on Instagram at Jen Miller 1313, and on Facebook at Jen Miller as well.
Fabulous. Listeners, you want to be checking Jen out. She is a leader among leaders. It doesn't matter what position she's in. She is taking the reins. She is taking the bull by the horns and really leading with passion, a purpose. And from that, and from staying in her relationships, she continues to create opportunities for herself. And there's a lot to learn there.
Thank you so much. This is awesome to be able to share stories and to hear you as well, and all that you have to offer. So thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Listeners, remember to leave a review. The more stars, the better. And in your review, let us know what piece resonated with you, what inspiration you're taking away, what else you want to know. Also, feel free to hit subscribe. We come into your inbox every Monday morning with fresh new content. See you next week, and thank you for joining us.